in that space. I'm Justin Lee. I'm with Casey Family Programs. I use he, him pronouns. Welcome to the best breakout of the day. We are super excited to have you, and you are in the breakout to learn more about and have a conversation around Family Stronger Together LA and Sacred Groves. And we're going to talk through how we're reimagining the community pathway in Los Angeles County, joined by some great, fabulous presenters. And so we'll introduce them in a second. Format for today, we're going to do a high-level overview of both of these initiatives. Then we're going to have a roundtable discussion with all the presenters you see spotlighted on the screen to dive a little deeper. Going to invite you during that roundtable conversation. My dog has joined me. Denali, welcome. Thank you. Okay, boy. During that roundtable conversation, we really invite you to enter into the chat your thoughts, your reflections, questions you have. As a facilitator of that roundtable, I'll be kind of working them into the process, into the conversation. Once we're done with that conversation, take about 30 minutes or so to do that. We want to open it up to everybody to actually come off mic, come off mute and have just a conversation. So this entire real session, this is meant to be like we're all hanging out at dinner and we're having a conversation about this really innovative work. Excited to be here. My invitation to everyone before we start is to really think about how you could implement something like this in your jurisdiction. What would it take? What questions you have for the folks that are doing this? We have founders on this call. We have innovators. We have strategists. We have really smart folks that have really transformed the system in Los Angeles County and been doing this for years. And so invite everyone to lean into that power that we have on here and that knowledge. And finally, this is a scalable, replicable intervention that we've done here, right? So this can happen in LA, it can happen anywhere. Might look different in your jurisdiction, but we hope that you come out of today understanding that we can do something. And I'd argue if we wait on this to come from the feds or the state or county departments, we'll be waiting a long time. So we're sort of the saying, we are the people we've been waiting for. I think this team embodies that, and I'd invite everyone to think in that way as we go along. So gonna get jumped in. Everyone can see my screen. If you can't, please come off mute. Hopefully we're doing this right. So here's our presenters today. We have 3 lived experts on our team: Tina Rios, Dr. J. Nyla Inc. McNeill, and Alton Pitre. So they are running Sacred Groves, and we'll hear from them in a minute. We also have our system, community, and legal partners on the team. There's a small window obscuring the slides. All right, we figure out how to do something there. Hold on one second. I'm just going to blame the Hoover app for all my challenges here.
It's Mercury retrograde. That's what we've been blaming, so.
Oh no, that's the worst. Okay, let me try this. Is that any better?
Perfect.
Perfect, okay. Now I've lost the ability to see everybody. Hold on one second. Here we go, okay. All right, so here's our other presenters: Reginald Carter with LA County Department of Children and Family Services. We have Dr. Kathy Icenhower from Shields for Families, Jimena Vasquez with the Survivor Justice Center, Sharon Balmer Cartagena with Public Counsel, and then Minyong Lee with Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County. So these are all our partners on the Zoom today. One of the problems we're trying to solve for with these interventions, and as you hear about the work happening and how we're reimagining the community pathway, is this sort of process that happens when a family is reported to the child protection hotline. When they interact with the front door of the child welfare system, it's overwhelming. It's a complex system. It's during one of the most possibly traumatic experiences of their lives. And they're interacting with a department and with a system that I'd argue Child Protective Services next to police has some of the greatest government powers. They can't arrest and they can't incarcerate and they can't deport, but they can take your kids away and terminate your parental rights and remove your child from your home and place them into a system. So we really need to think about how do we level the playing field, so to speak. Often there isn't support for parents during this process. Unless they're lucky enough to have a trusted partner, a community or agency, there's not a clear pathway for them. They're not often getting legal advice or legal representation or legal counsel. And I looked up the stats. In Los Angeles County, County Counsel, the lawyers for the county, have a $215 million budget. The county itself of Los Angeles has a $3 billion budget. So you've got parents that are really going against a county and a jurisdiction with over $3 billion in resources, sort of coming to them. So how do we reimagine that support? How do we put some things in place to make sure we can level that playing field and we have equitable treatment? So I'm not going to read all of these to you. You have these slides somewhere on the HOOVA website. Hope you can find them. You can download them for after the presentation. There's three things I'll lift up. This is sort of the timeline of where we started and how we got here. One, that very first block over on the left-hand side, November 2021, this started with community. So Reimagine Child Safety Coalition in Los Angeles sent a list of demands to the Board of Supervisors, and one of those was we need counsel, we need legal counsel lawyers during that investigation phase pre-opening a petition on a family. That led to a board motion, and then you see kind of where it just dominoes to, we created a parentsupportline.org, a website for parents to know their rights, Family Strong Together LA, Sacred Grove. So this sort of roots of this started in community. The other thing I'll lift up is that DCFS stepped in with the funding at every point along the way. DCFS paid for the website, started the intervention for Family Stronger Together LA in one of their regional offices under the leadership of Reginald Carter, expanded that program, the FSTLA, to an additional 3 offices. So this was all funded by DCFS. Philanthropy helped. Casey Family Programs, Anthony Pritzker Family Foundation, and the Hilton Foundation kicked in some resources and some in-kind support, but this was predominantly funded by LA County DCFS, which I think speaks to the leadership and speaks to the partnership there. And then finally, the last thing I'd lift up is this took time. All right, so if you look at sort of the left side from November 2021 to when FSTLA launched, that's 4 years. And so there is the folks on this screen stayed committed, stayed engaged, and really did the hard work. So exceptionally proud of the team. All right, I am going to play a short video that will give you a feel for this programming, this preventive legal services approach, and you'll hear directly from parents that have experienced the program and other preventive legal services supports.
My first cry for help was calling the police department. So my case came in through the police department, and that's when the social workers came and did an investigation. That's when we started.
Since the beginning of my case up to today, I think I have like 4 or 5 social workers.
It was just a lot to process. It was really overwhelming. It was really depressing. It was sad. It's just a lot.
It's very conflicting and it's traumatizing. And I always tell DCFS, is this normal? Because it's starting to become normal, and I don't want them to grow up thinking this is normal thing.
I grew up in foster care myself. My support system naturally is like real weekend, but I tap in with certain groups and organizations and they become my support system.
I am one of the peer partners for the program Family Stronger Together. Some of us have past experience initially in the child welfare system. Who else is closer to the solution than the people who have already gone through these experiences?
They push me every day to move forward and be a better person. They've helped me to maintain my sobriety.
They help me on that. They go deep. They don't just go over.
First, when I went in, I was like, I'm kind of scared, but it's like another family, really. Counselors are great. The girls in the group are just, this is a bond that we all have. It's nice.
If it wasn't for that program, I wouldn't have a voice in learning and being more of a stronger parent I am today than ever.
There is help out there. Sometimes you don't know where to start, and having this program could be very helpful for families that are low income, families that don't know what to do, have language barriers, to be able to come across us and say, hey, there's somebody out there that's able to be my voice, be able to help me, be able to tell me how to move forward with the situation that I'm in.
So powerful voices, the why behind this work, right? And there's the website parentsupportline.org that you're invite you all to check out. So I'm going to hand it over now to Kathy and from Shields for Families to jump us into the content around what Family Stronger Together LA is. And one thing before you start, Kathy, I forgot to mention that video was produced by a lived expert based out of San Diego and Los Angeles who opened their own design firm. So we really did some great work there. Happy to support.
Thank you, Justin. Like to acknowledge that the website also, pretty much everything that was the core of building this program came from a group of lived experts who put their heart and soul into building this. And before I start, I just want to acknowledge again the partnership. That's why so many people are on this call and presenting, because this has been a true partnership from the beginning. And talking about reimagining the community pathway, I think Families Stronger Together, the easiest way to say it is it's families helping families. Like Justin said, we're working very closely with the Vermont Corridor Regional Office and appreciate all of their support. They send us referrals of families from essentially the moment that an investigation is initiated and a referral comes in. Families can also come in on their own through that warm line or from other community-based organizations that exist in our area. But the moment that they come in, one of our peer partners, who are all parents who have lived experience in the system, reach out to that family and essentially say, how can we help you? What is it that you might need? As a part of that process, we do a legal screening with the families to identify whether or not there are any legal needs. And you'll hear from our legal partners a little bit later, but they immediately jump on to begin addressing whatever issues those families might have that require legal intervention. We work very closely with the families, again, based on what they say they need. That's not always what they had the investigation is looking at. Again, we're looking at what it is that they feel they need to support them. We connect them to services and resources, probably over 150 different types of services and resources that our families have received. And I want to say that a lot of those have been concrete supports. This morning, if you listen to some of the panels, you heard the importance of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And yes, a whole lot of our families, they just need a little bit of help because something happened. And so their rent got behind or utilities got behind. And we are there to help and support them. We continue to work with the families after we've connected them to services to support them for at least 6 months or essentially as long as it takes. In order for them to feel like they are being supported. And I want to emphasize that trust and support is really critical to this whole process. And you'll hear a little bit more about it when we move to Sacred Groves, because that's the ongoing basis of support for our families. I'm going to go to the next slide, Justin. So just we've only been operating for a little over a year. And so I feel like our data is pretty amazing. But as of November 2025, we'd had 298 referrals. And as you can see, most of them came from the Department of Children and Family Services. So again, commend the staff there who are interested in keeping families together and getting them out of the system. About 50% of our investigations closed with the children remaining in the home. We only had about 20% of our cases move to being open cases. And I think what's critical is only 15 families. That's about 4% of the families that we saw was there a child removal. And critical to the disproportionality that happens in our system with Black families, only one of the Black families that were investigated resulted in a removal. And again, when that happens, when a case is opened, when children are removed, our staff are working closely with those families on an ongoing manner in order to get those children back together or get those cases closed. And again, in partnership with any attorneys that are working with them to address their legal needs.
Thanks for that,
And
Kathy.
Go
ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, as Justin said, we're really excited. I've been in the SPA 6 community, been blessed to be there for the last 40 years. And now we're getting ready to expand our services to the other regional offices in our community.
Thanks for that, Kathy. And one note, we're also currently partnering with USC to do a research evaluation because we're seeing such great results so early. And part of that research evaluation is going to be a return on investment. And so with respect to the county's savings, when you're not bringing in these kids into out-of-home care, when you're not opening up cases, what do those savings look like? And I think what we're going to find just on back of the envelope sort of math is we're saving millions upon millions of dollars for the county just by implementing FSTLA. So wanted to make a plug for that.
Yeah, thank you. And if I can put this into some perspective, in the previous year, this particular office, they averaged a little over 23 removals every month. And our data shows that, our removals are less than 2 a month, like 1.67, about 1.5. So if that helps you to put it in perspective, been a significant difference in terms of keeping families together.
Thanks for that, Kathy. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Nyla. Nyla, I'll run the slides for you and you can tell us about Sacred Groves and then we'll jump into our conversation.
Thank you. The slide is being blocked again a little bit.
I'm blaming it on Hova. Let me try it again. Sorry.
It's all good. Hey everyone, my name is Nyla McNeill. I am a lived expert for Sacred Groves. I came into this work from Castillo Consulting Partners, who got a bunch of lived experts, TAFE folks, advocates together to really push this work along. And I came in with this work to Shields, which is what Kathy runs and has been a superwoman of for so long, providing these concrete supports. And with that, all of that precedent work with Families Stronger Together LA has led to some of these more grassroots approaches to helping parents heal from the traumatic experience of having folks come in their home and investigate, and also get parents into this movement of advocating for children and families and advocating for what they could have had instead of all of the anxiety and the fear and really just this ongoing adverse experience. So I do systems change work, and so do my colleagues Tina and Alton here. They're here right on the screen with me, planning every step of the way. And we also have an incredible group of parents that helped us develop what Sacred Groves is going to continue to be. It's really community-based at the end of the day. Next slide, please. So what is Sacred Groves? Sacred Groves is an opportunity for parents to come sit in a circle and tell their stories, essentially. It's a transformative justice circle as a research method. So instead of just having folks show up to a healing support group, we're also recording with consent folks' conversations so we can pull out things that might turn into tools along the way. And every week we had different prompts and different themes. And one of those themes was, if systems were meant to care for us, what would they look like? So folks, of course, brought their lived experience to that conversation. And I really believe that Sacred Groves is this culture shift that everyone is talking about. We are combining ancient healing practices with cutting edge technology. And I have a theory as a scientist that there's a lot of critique about AI, but AI can really help us who have a lot of daily minority stressors just move things along a little bit quickly. Otherwise, we are caretaking, we are looking for resources, we're looking for job opportunities. We can't do all of it at once. So we had a human guided process allow us to take those conversations from the parents, run it through a language model, and at the end have really powerful suggestions from our 6 parents about what wellness and welfare could look like if we had a truly well system. Next slide, please. And this is just our little schedule. I'm not going to read every title, but some of the themes that we were working with from the history of child separation. We looked at a video from DCFS from 2010. We sort of talked about how it's changed since. And by the end of it, we're talking about next steps for community pathway. We've been calling it 2.0 internally, but what would it look like for 3.0 or an infinite iteration of community supporting community members? Next slide, please. Ideally, Sacred Groves is a regenerative model. As Justin said, it's something that could be scaled, Family Stronger Together as well. We wanted parents who were coming into programs like that and who really wanted to strengthen their advocacy work to come into our circle and really just root into it. And our definition of lived experience in this particular community is rooted in transformative and healing justice. It's defined by this will to make collective decision making and go from this, I'm systems impacted to we're impacting the systems, just flip it on its head. And our method is really inspired by tree networks. And in addition to that, just really moving the grassroots along how native flora and fauna have responded to fires. Nature exists regardless of its disasters. So we liken folks coming into the home, questioning us about parenting to a natural disaster. Why am I being disrupted when all I really need is food? All I really need is someone to drive my kid to school while I have to go show up to this shift. So we are just working and listening to nature as a part of our method. Next slide, please. And with that, we've had some really incredible tools come up in our analysis. One of those things is a parent's bill of rights. So we have a foster youth bill of rights. And we were just wondering, well, what about parents? And parents often say there's no handbook for navigating these things, or when I am being investigated, or there is a pre-petition process, there's so many things to be accountable to. So we imagine a centralized document that's co-signed by parents and all of our cross collaborators to really explain and to have some sort of like a toolkit, resources to explain what you can do, what our rights are, from transportation to visitation enforcement, reviewing the reports that people are making about us, and speaking for oneself. So ultimately, we want to have more tools where folks can really center their own experience in this huge, confusing mess of all of the things that you have to be accountable to when your family may or may not be investigated. And for sake of time, only presenting one. Yeah, there's so many though. And I wish our parents were here, but thank you.
Thanks for that, Nyla. And everybody has the report. I saw Tina drop it in the chat. I think we might have uploaded to the Hoover site, but if not, we'll upload it there as well, so you can see the full list of recommendations. What I will say about the recommendations, which is really interesting. So I've been representing Casey in the community pathway work in the county for years, right? And sitting on all these different committees and all that stuff. Several of these recommendations, system partners have never come up with. So there's never been really in those meetings that I'm in around community pathway, around family first, prevention services, around any, throw the dart and pick a meeting. No, never talking about the parents' bill of rights. And that is an actionable recommendation that isn't going to be a huge lift, that these parents lifted up, that we can now use as a tool in the community pathway. So really excited about the powerful connection there. Okay, so no one can see my screen right now, right? We're good. Okay. All right. First time using Zoom. So here we go. We're going to jump into our conversation. Remember, this is a dinner conversation, free flowing. I've got some guiding questions. We're going to let the conversation go where wants to go. Really want to invite you, if you have a question or if you have a thought, pop it in the chat. I'll work it into the conversation as we go, and we'll do this for about 30 minutes or so, and then we will jump into opening up for everybody just to come off mute and let's have a conversation. All right, so you'll be joining us at the dinner table. So I'm going to start with Reginald. Reginald, representing Deputy Director at DCFS, leader in the equity work in DCFS, leader in community connections, that work, is over the regional offices where this Family Strong Together LA and Sacred Groves is being rolled out. So can't speak highly enough of Reginald and his work in the department, his leadership. Wanted to start with you, Reginald, because DCFS is the sort of the partner in this work that I think is a key partner, and you have leaned in, and DCFS has supported this financially. You're supporting it with your staff and all the things that are needed from the system side, if you will. Why is this work important to you and to DCFS?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's important because DCFS, we don't, in the systems, don't do a good job raising kids. This work centers primarily around prevention, which is now one of our priorities for supporting families, to connect them earlier, to community resources, people that they trust. This is a shift for us as a department where we are collaborating with the community, some more than others. For example, Kathy, we've been working together I've been here 30 years, we've been working together the whole time. However, that was on the surface. Now we're going much deeper, and we're trying to keep families from coming in altogether. And then if they do have to come in, they're linked to services. And when they are returned home, or if they're staying home, they have a place to go, someone that they trust to come back to in time of need, so that they don't need system intervention. So for us, prevention is key, and keeping children and families out of the system is the number one priority. Safely, of course.
Appreciate that, Reginald. Kathy, I'm going to come over to you and ask a question about Community Pathway. You are deep in the work with Community Pathway in Los Angeles, as well as at the state level. I assume you're probably doing something federally as well. Kathy's plugged in everywhere. Interested in this effort and how you see this redefining Community Pathway and what it means for other counties, other folks on the Zoom here today. What can they learn from it?
Well, thank you, Justin. I have about 10 different answers for that, but I'll do a couple because I know other people want to chime in. But I think just like Reggie, and I'm sorry, I can't call you Reginald. I've known you for too long. So
it was hard for me too.
So I think that Reggie touched on a part of it. This is much deeper in the system. I think when folks all the talk that we've had about the community pathway is always been about keeping families out of the system, which is of course critical. But as we know, we look at the data, a whole lot of families make it through that door that, in my opinion, should never have gotten in. And this provides an exit ramp, so to speak, to get those families out of the system as soon as possible so that they don't have to experience any further trauma. Because we all know what an investigation can do. And I think that, again, part of that reimagining is that, we've done a lot of talking in the community pathway, those out there that have been involved with FFPS, about all the evidence-based practices, about all the service things. But really, I think that the success of the community pathway is about building that trust that we heard about this morning, building that engagement. And that's why I believe this program is as successful as it has been, because we're talking about, again, families helping families. Families have somebody there within a day that they've experienced the same thing. They understand what is going on, and they can be there as a support, as a liaison between the department and that family, and make sure that they get all of the resources that they need. So again, not just we close this investigation, but that they don't ever have to touch the system again. So I think I'll stop there. I probably could say a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that. I'm going to turn now to Sharon and Minyong and Jimena, and maybe Sharon, we can start with you kicking off this question. you're representing the legal services, the free legal services that are provided to families that need them through this Families Stronger Together LA initiative. And we often hear the term lawyered up, right? These families are going to get lawyered up. Before we started this program, I heard a lot of concern around, well, if you invite lawyers into the investigation phase, they're going to mess everything up. Kids are going to be less safe. It's not going to work. You're going to slow down things, et cetera, et cetera. So Sharon, interested in your thoughts and your colleagues' thoughts around how legal services are actually making kids safer, how parents being informed and knowing their rights are more likely to engage. Tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, the importance of those legal services, preventive legal services.
Yeah, so I think we heard that a lot, right? And certainly that's what you see on TV. People get lawyers, everything shuts down, things get really aggressive, really unnecessarily. And for us, if we're doing our jobs right, we do the opposite of that, right? We see ourselves, I think, more as helping our clients um, understand why the county is in their lives, understand what they need to do to resolve the issue that brought the county to their lives. Often, when my clients come to me, they're probably not communicating in the most optimal way with their worker. Maybe they're scared, maybe they're angry. Sometimes they don't understand what's being explained or asked of them. And so I'm a completely confidential spot where they can vent their fears, they can vent their frustrations. We can hear all that. And on the other side of that, once we've built trust, we can make a plan together to reach out to the county to resolve the county's issues. Because really, our clients, and I believe most of the county workers, we have the same goal in mind, right? There's an issue that brought the county, the family to the county's attention. And we want that issue resolved. And sometimes that means helping a family get a restraining order. Sometimes it means helping a family more accurately communicate what they're already doing in a way that the worker is able to hear. And sometimes it's helping my client through talking with them, through creating a safety plan, through lots of different levels of communication to fully understand what they need to do to have the county close out the case. But I'd love to pass to one of my great partners, Jimena or Minyong, to talk a little bit about their experience.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think that there is also, when the county does encounter families, they may have identified one thing as an issue that possibly may not require legal services. But then as you're talking to the family and as you're identifying sort of the roots of instability, that can raise lots of different issues that may require other civil legal services. And I think this has been one of the biggest benefits. We want to see families who may not have come to the attention of the social worker or the department because of financial issues, but when we encounter the families, they're having their benefits got cut. They are not getting access to things that they need, and some advocacy is required. And that's where we want to come in and really walk with the families to help stabilize them, even, and put them in a better position than even when the social worker encountered them to start with. And so this has also been a process of empowerment for the families, and just having somebody who, like Sharon alluded to, is just speaking with them, and the families know is 100% like on their side with confidential information that we are not allowed to disclose, I think can really bring a sense of empowerment for the families and for the parents.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what Minyong said, that I think our services really help identify issues early on, right? I think a lot of the struggles families do have a legal component. If they have issues with housing, an attorney can help with some of those housing issues, public benefits issues. So I think getting the attorneys involved earlier can really resolve some of the underlying issues of instability in the families.
Yeah, great points. And I saw Zoom user. I'm not so sure who Zoom user is, but if you want to put your name in the chat, I think I can change your title on the Zoom. But not only that, if someone else has the funds for a decent lawyer, the bio parent can be railroaded very easily, right? And what's interesting, that reminded me of a comment that Maral Karakusian, oh, hey, Miss Otto, Maral Karakusian, who was the board deputy for Supervisor Han, who authored the original motion to start this work. She used to commonly say, hey, if Brad Pitt was getting investigated by DCFS, Brad Pitt would hire the best lawyers in the country and wouldn't let anybody in the door. So why do we have a different, you know, why do we have that disparity for folks that don't have Brad Pitt money? All right, I want to go next to, and again, invite folks in the chat. Please start popping in some questions, popping in any thoughts you have. Again, we'll work these into the conversation before we open it up to everybody. I want to go next to Tina. Tina, a leader in this work forever, and Tina has more connections in the county, at the state, than I think anyone. She's just like a connector. Maybe it's you and Kathy head to head. We should have a battle. You are really deep in this work, right? And so I'm interested from your perspective. Tell me one way or give me a story about how you've seen Sacred Groves actually impact the parents that you're working with.
Well, absolutely. I started not by choice in this world of advocacy, but I feel it is my calling. It is something that I believe truly in, and I'm so honored to be in this space and to see such great movement towards keeping families together. Part of Sacred Groves circle, what I saw, what I knew would happen because of my lived experience, being with my peers as advocates, sharing my story amongst people who believed me and centered my voice. I knew that this would transform those in the peer circle, and that's exactly what happened. Many of the parents started trusting us so much because we believed them and we showed up with our lived experience, with our stories, and they started speaking freely and creatively. And I was just amazed. Me, the person you just described, I was like, wow, that is amazing. And I was just so inspired. And to our surprise as well, we heard parents talk about how they went home to their families and their families noticed that they were healing. Dad, you're smiling. What are those meetings about? To be shared and for them to talk to their families about what they're doing with honor, and that rebuilt their esteem as well. And to see them designing recommendations and tools that will actually build not just an exit ramp, but a pathway that you don't have to get on that freeway to child welfare, that you can walk down this pathway that's designed by them, and it's just beautiful. And so that was my experience. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks for that. Alton, I'm going to come to you next. And Sacred Groves is really designed as this, to Jay Nyla's point, this sort of iterative process, right? So you started with a cohort of system impacted parents that had been through the FSTLA program, had been investigated, successfully kept their kids safe, kept them out of care, and you run through the circles. Alton, you're a leader in the justice involved space, soon to be or might already be a certified gang expert. I can't remember if that's if you got to still take the test or whatever.
This week.
This week, okay. So thank you for joining. You should be studying, right? So thinking from that perspective and running this cohort, there's plans this year to run the cohort with a justice involved population. What do you see as, how could that play out? What do you see as the benefit to working with justice involved population using this same Sacred Groves iterative approach?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Alton Pitre. So as Justin mentioned, my passion for this work stems from my lived experience of being formerly incarcerated and overcoming gang culture. And so just thinking, Nyla mentioned Sacred Groves 3.0, right? And so it's like, this is thinking further ahead, but what would a Sacred Groves look like if we focus on the juvenile justice system? Like, for example, if we have a justice involved cohort, maybe a parent cohort, it would be parents who are maybe on probation or just they've been impacted by the justice system, right? Just to help their quality of life and navigation of the system to prevent their kids from being taken away, right? What happens to well, hold on. So, like, do they need daycare assistance, right? Do they need bus passes? Do they need transportations? Do they need funds to put the youth in to put their children in youth programs to prevent possible gang involvement, right? So these are just some areas of prevention. I have a lot I'm gonna try to run through in the next 2 minutes. And also what happens to the kid when the parents go to jail, right? Who steps in? How can we step in to find family members? The DCFS get involved? These are just some areas of examination. And what about the youth who are locked up and placed in group homes because they have no family to go home to, right? So how do we, in addition to the parents, how do we also focus on the youth as well who may be currently incarcerated? And so we will implement the the Sacred Groves model, but with the juvenile justice focus. So we connect families impacted by justice system with informational resources, providing them social and legal services, right? In conjunctions with community-based organizations, just to maintain that community and family center, right? Informing parents and the youth of what to expect on the road ahead. Let's say for parents whose youth are going through the justice system, right? Maybe they just starting to get arrested, right? How can we help the parents prevent their child from going further into the system, right? I work with many youth inside the juvenile halls who are facing transfer hearings. They're fighting for their livelihood. They have to they're fighting to show that they're amenable to rehabilitation, right? So how can we help? There are different levels of prevention, right? We can work with the youth who aren't there yet to prevent them from going further. And we can also work with the youth who are facing the more serious charges to prevent them from transferring to the adult systems. And so just to wrap it up, so this could, we could have potential partnerships with probation, public defenders, reentry organizations, family courts, right? When kids come through the system, many kids are in the family courts and the juvenile justice system at the same time, right? How do we place some attention there? And yeah, so basically the bottom line is intervene earlier, reduce harm across these systems for both the parents and the children, and to generate some insights that reshape how the county approaches both the child welfare and the juvenile justice system.
Appreciate
And
that,
there's also like maybe we could create a reform or create a youth bill of rights or something like that. Just comes to mind.
for the justice side. Yeah, great
Yes.
ideas.
Thank
And I think, Alton's lifting up a key part of this model that is replicable, able to be replicated, right? So if you have a marginalized, system impacted population in your jurisdiction, your county, it might look different. It might be folks that are unhoused. It might be disabilities. It might be neurodivergent. It might be rural, right? Opportunities that aren't there for folks that are in really rural settings and don't have connections. So you can really take this model and adapt it and use those same principles for your populations that where you're not hearing their voice and you really want to involve them in the process. Nyla, please.
Yeah, just speaking to that, mirroring the land, we really wanted this to be regenerative and permaculture, mirroring how the land just consistently seeds itself and grows back, seeds itself and grows back through all the different disasters. And we just really want to emphasize that regenerative social gardening is like what we want people to do. So ultimately, this will create harmony. You've got one circle over here, one circle over here, one circle over here. They overlap. They create some sacred geometry. And that's why, we call it sacred groves at the end of the day. I like to bring the woo-woo in so folks can, get the spiritual aspect, talking about Maslow's needs. The Blackfoot Indian tribe created that approach, and a part of that approach is the spiritual. So just bringing that back in.
If I could add one last thing to Nyla's point, I also imagine us at Sacred Groves, right? Maybe even with some parent ambassadors where we go in directly into the juvenile halls and we host these tribal healing circles, right? Where we implement that component you're speaking about, right? Just to maintain that as well, that Sacred Groves aspect. So that would be a great idea as well.
For sure. Appreciate that. Nyla, I'm going to stay with you for a second. You are the Sacred Groves team resident scientist, participatory researcher. You bring the woo-woo, as you just said, right? The spiritual components. So we see in child, or at least I'll use an I statement, I see in child welfare, and I've done some of them, right? There's focus groups, there's listening sessions, there's community input meetings. You and Alton and Tina didn't go that route, right? You leaned into the transformative, the healing, the justice circles. So can you talk a little bit about that practice and that choice you made and the intention behind it and how you see it play out compared to traditional child welfare intervention around the 800th time we pulled together focus groups to hear what community needs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still very new in this particular field, but I have worked with youth for a very long time. And with the protocol focus groups, the researcher is not allowed to speak. And I'm a yapper. So that's one of the things. Like, I'm a yapper. I want to know what's going on. I want to share my story too, because I happen to be a researcher studying the things that have also happened to me. And a lot of these things have happened to my mom, have happened to my family lines generationally. So all of our stories are invited. So when you have a healing group, you sort of shift this like top down, I'm studying your experience too. Everyone is coming together and making this kaleidoscope, and we're getting a little bit of everyone's overlapping intersections. And people, like Tina said, start to speak freely. People start to just be as they are. They don't feel like they're responding to someone who is trying to get them. And that I knew was going to yield things that we haven't heard yet, because people never feel comfortable enough to get there. So if we get there, what will we see? That was the intention behind that.
Beautiful. Appreciate that. So for Sharon, coming back to you, and please, y'all, I'm not seeing any. Tina's blown up the chat, for goodness sake. But I'm not seeing anybody else putting questions in the chat or thoughts. So please, inviting you in. This is only going to be fun. Great, we got one question. So let me pull this out, and then I have a question, Sharon, for you on deck. And I don't see the question anymore. Why not? Oh, I got a direct question. So the direct question is, the presentation states that Sacred Groves and Afro-Indigenous rooted transformation justice circles as a research method. Does Sacred Groves come into contact with families dealing with an Indian Child Welfare Act, a ICWA case? And what do your supports look like for those families? So put that open to anybody on the call, whether we've served folks that have ICWA as a background, tribal background, any insights there?
I mean, in Sacred Groves, we have yet to, but we are in development. We are studying, we are in community, we are connected with tribal folks who have lived experience. So that part is building. Again, this is our first cohort. But in regards to Family Stronger LA, I know Kathy can speak more to that experience.
Well, I can say that that is a question that we ask of families immediately when they come in the door to see. As of this point, we have not had any ICWA families. But of course, if we did, we would ensure that they get to the right resources and services in the community. I've had some experience just through Shields, but in this program, we haven't had any yet. But obviously something that our staff are very much aware of and ensure that they get to the resources and services that they need. I wanted to circle back around, if it's okay, Justin, to Sacred Groves, because I think that maybe you guys aren't giving yourself enough credit, because that trust now is building like a different kind of strength in our families and their ability to speak up for themselves and advocate. And giving back to the other families. And I really hope that I will continue to see that. I mean, I'm very vested in Sacred Groves because at Shields, it's the model that we've used for 36 years, having our families meet with me monthly, a consumer advisory board that has really directed Shields and the decisions that we've made about programming from the beginning. And so that kind of shifting that power, which is what I think this is about, shifting the power and allowing families to say, this is what we really need. And then systems modifying and adjusting to meet that need. I think that's going to be a critical for our movement forward. The recommendations, as they've said that they've come up with are amazing. And like you said, Justin, that nobody else sitting around the table thought about that. Well, why shouldn't parents have a Bill of Rights? So I'm really hoping that we can see the implementation of that. I know in our program, we're looking at those parents. They're still very much engaged and assisting with our other parents, and hopefully that is a model that will continue to, grow and develop and just the circle get larger.
Appreciate that. Tina, I see your hand. Please jump in.
Yeah, so quickly, that's the whole intent of it. As an advocate and activist early on in my experience, I had to tap into my ancestors. Literally had to pray and say, what is happening here? And did the research that the issue that was happening to me with the systemic issues and racism in the child welfare system, in 2019, were systemic. Happened to my ancestors, happened in the residential schools. And so that really empowered me to be an activist, to an advocate. But I had to learn a lot of hard lessons. I had to learn how to tell my story. I had to learn what it looked like to be believed, to be tokenized, to all these things. And also, so that's part of this circle is we want to pass on that knowledge to the circle. The things that we've learned, we feel that that's part of being human beings, and part of the circle is sacred, and that's how we pass along knowledge. And that's part of our goals is to empower, and that's why we call them the parent peer ambassadors, because they're going to go as ambassadors. And that's already what is happening with some of the families. People are asking them, hey, how did you escape the pipeline? And they were like, hey, well, this is what I did. I did it by love, by hope, by believing in myself, by standing up to truth and being recognized and joining this peer circle. And then they pass on that knowledge. And that's that's just one aspect of regenerative parts. Also coming up with the recommendations, centering people with lived experience and believing them, like Reggie or Reginald has been doing. Minyong, Sharon, Alton, everyone here has been doing, you've been doing so great in believing and trusting the voice of the person with lived experience. Look at all the reimagined child safety demands that have been taken up since its launch. I mean, we have to toot our horns. We have to really celebrate how many less children have been removed in LA County. And that's a result of, again, centering the voice of the lived experience, and that's what we're going to keep doing. We already have people that want to help with the Parents' Bill of Rights, and you will see it. You will see it. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Tina. And Reggie, I'm going to come back to you, just connected to, this conversation around what I would define as sort of a mindset shift, right? And so you're representing DCFS, you're in a management position overseeing, I don't know how many, probably more staff than like several states have, right? Like probably Kansas, Colorado, Oklahoma, you put them together, Reggie's over 3 systems if you do the math. So interested in your thoughts around any mindset shift you're seeing with respect to your staff, either at the leadership level or frontline level, when we talk about this importance and impact of partnering with lived expertise. Again, LA County's doing a ton of work in this space. I'm interested in you're seeing, the benefits of how your staff are shifting mindset, and then where you see where there's a little bit more to go. Because there was a question in the chat, or a comment from Lillian about wanting to work with the directors of my county to begin strategizing implementation of the model, right? And so from your perspective, what does that take, and what are you seeing with respect to this mindset shift and partnering with lived expertise?
I think it just, number one, it's going to still take a lot more work. We have a long way to go still. It's just a belief that others do know better than we do. The community, our lived experience, our parents, our youth. It's the willingness to be open to that change. And it's also leaning into the data. Again, we know the outcomes when children come into care. And for years, we've now been trying to, and the mind shift started a little while ago. However, there's still a long ways to go. We have to continue to, from the top down and the bottom up and all the way around, to be on one accord and moving this needle forward, to make a commitment to work with the community and families, to make a commitment to try to fund these partnerships, even though that's getting harder and harder, but to universally have that commitment in a partnership and collaboratively work to continue to move this needle, not just for this group or that group, but for all of our children and families, so that we can continue to just make more and more improvements. And yes, I like to say that we've done a great job in reducing the number of kids in care, and we have over the last 2 years, but we've been doing this for now 25, 30 years, at least I have. But I would say we're maybe 10% of where we need to be. So it's going to take a continued committed effort by all parties involved, from the leadership all the way down and all the way back up the chain of command.
Appreciate that, Reggie. Sharon, along this same line of implementation, so you and I were brought in pretty early with from Maral, the board deputy, and Maral now she's a county director, so she's fancy. Didn't have the time to join us, but we were brought in right in the beginning to sort of convene the team and pull together people to develop the model. Interested in lessons learned from that process. As I shared in the beginning, this took 4 years from that initial list of demands from Reimagine Child Safety to the launch. What did you learn over that time, and what would you share as advice for folks that want to do this in their jurisdiction?
So I think we started by looking nationally where there had been successes. And I think what I learned is to learn from those successes, but don't let them control your outcome. We saw that in a lot of jurisdictions, there were very lawyer-heavy, lawyer upfront projects that had been successful. So initially, that was kind of the route we're going on. Okay, it worked in Detroit, it worked in Brooklyn, maybe it'll work in LA. But we really started thinking about, one, what we hope to get with that model, and then the practicalities of implementing that model. And that really, I think, was a big eye-opener. What would it mean for every family to have a lawyer? Well, it would be billions of dollars, and there probably aren't enough legal aid lawyers in Los Angeles County for every lawyer. So how could we do that? What would that mean? What do we want to get to by giving every family a lawyer? Well, we want to make sure they know their rights. Are there other ways that we can ensure that families know their rights? We can have a website. We can train parent partners. So parent partners have a lawyer on speed dial they can ask questions for and can empower. Is that a model? So I think over the 4 years, I am embarrassed that it took 4 years. I am glad that it did, because I think we got to a stronger model for LA County than we would have if we were able to launch in the first year.
Yeah. I don't think you need to be embarrassed. I think we can be, because how many are operating in California, right? Only a few of this sort of work. So appreciate hanging in there. Yeah. And it's not a meeting with lawyers without a lawyer joke. So we can throw some of them in the chat, but corralling like 14 or 15 lawyers has been a definite fun process. Kathy, from the community partner side, and please, y'all feel free to jump in the chat and we'll open it up to everybody to come off mic and start talking. Talk a little bit about, from the community partner side, what this meant for your agency, you kind of jumped in sort of halfway. Sharon talked about the pivot. We had to build the legal pieces, and then you kind of jumped in. What did it mean for you as an executive director and as a community agency to opt into this work? What have been the exciting parts? What have been the challenges? Sort of your advice there for anybody in the community space.
Well, I believe I fought my way in. I couldn't be more excited to do this. As folks have said, we've been in the community for a long, long time. And we know that if we listen to our families and help them get to what they need, then we can keep them out of systems. And so we have some experience in this area. LA County has tried projects in the past that were very, very successful. Maybe people in the audience have heard of points of engagement. I know that Reggie has, where we demonstrated then that we were able to safely close out investigations, close out cases, and keep families together. And just me personally, families need to be together. And so whatever we can do in order to support and make that happen, that's what we need to do. And so I don't know if that directly answers your question, Justin, but I mean, I think that we see it in now many initiatives that are coming out, like through CalAIM, et cetera, that helping families get to what it is that they need is a critical service for families. I think we heard that all through the panel this morning. If somebody had just helped me link to resources, helped me find where things are, somebody that I can trust, somebody that I know is believing me, somebody that I know is supporting me, then things might have looked a lot different. And so I feel like that is just, again, back to it takes a village. It's just community helping community, parents helping parents. And that's what this model really is all about. And so it was so aligned with the work that we already did that it was just a natural extension to take this step. And again, like Reggie has said, we have worked and partnered with child welfare for many, many years. And I've had the pleasure of working with Reggie. So I know his mindset in terms of wanting to keep families together. And so, again, couldn't be more honored to be in this space. And I want to acknowledge the staff at the Vermont Corridor because they put their trust in us. And they didn't have to. If you folks look back on the slides, you'll see that 90% of our referrals come from the department. And that to me is an incredible statement of some of that mindset shift that we're talking about, that their belief that families can do better together and safe in the community.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I remember, talking with the Sacred Groves team early on and the inspiration of how communities around the fires in Los Angeles just responding and supporting each other. And it wasn't like, oh, we need FEMA or we need some government agency, we're waiting on them. It was like pop-ups, pulling together resource lists, supporting each other, and so the wisdom and the power of community. And Kathy, appreciate your leadership. And like you're saying, this was an extension of work you're already doing. Tina, I'm going to give you the last word on this piece. I want to open it up to everybody on the Zoom. I think we got all the questions in the chat, but please, if you're in the Zoom room with us after Tina kind of shares her words, please come off mute. We're at a dinner party. We're hanging out. Give us your thoughts, your questions. Let's chop it up. So Tina.
Just, following up with Kathy about, social workers referring families, right, to this program, trusting in this program. I think it just calls out how social workers really want to help families, but they don't see the help coming from, maybe I'm speaking for, sorry. They might not see that the help might be a case being opened. Their truth is a lot of times opening a case is detrimental to families. So I love that social workers are now trusting the community pathway, trusting that families need support, they want support, and it's just believing in families. And that's what we have to do. That's the narrative shift. We have to believe in families. We can't start We have to stop blaming each other and shaming each other because we truly are in this together. We're here in LA County and we're seeing what everything that's happening. We are our best bet. So yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, just piggybacking on that, Tina, I was actually going to say something very similar. I'm gonna say most because there's no such thing as all, but 100% want to do the best we can for our families. We do not want to bring kids into the system, but we want to make sure that they're better off after contact when they were before, and that is why this linkage is so key. We ourselves are not the ones that are going to be doing anything in particular, except for doing an assessment and assessing and hopefully linking them to Shields and other community partners that again that will be able to help them in a time of need. And this partnership, when workers see the results, when they see the work, when they see the follow through, that is what, and then the word gets out. That is what spreads, and that is where the trust and the partnership is built. And so, as long as we continue to do that and work together and get these kinds of results and in this kind of collaboration and partnership, the work will continue to move in a very positive direction.
Appreciate that. So, want to bring in, we see a question coming from Sarah in the chat. Can you talk about strategies used in the model for building up numbers, involvement, and capacity of lived experts? Great question. Sacred Groves team, you want to take a shot at that first? And then, I know you all, we mentioned it earlier, came out of the partnership with Castillo Consulting Partners, a capacity building kind of lived expert group. And that was a partnership between the county's Office of Child Protection and KC Family Programs, kind of seeding that in the real great support by Castillo Consulting Partners, LLC. But interested from your perspectives, kind of the answer to that question in the chat. Everybody's quiet now. All right. Nyla's coming off.
Yeah,
mute.
just
All right.
processing the question. I mean, as far as building up numbers, we're still, again, in the seeding phase, but we are very purposeful about not wanting to get stuck in some sort of pilot situation. And this really is just going to be, we're going to try with this population, we're going to try with this population and keep it going. And we're hoping that the peer ambassadors will get inspired enough to be like, I think I see, how I can run this, or we can like train them to hold their own circles to make this just like the default. Because at the end of the day, there's societies all over the world who operate like this in their villages. So we're really just bringing back a rite of passage, a basic knowledge that's inherent to all of us to sit in a circle and talk. So hopefully part of this culture shift is like something will naturally turn on and folks will want to hold more circles in their communities. And it's already been happening for so long too, but it's just situating it in this community pathway shift. We're hoping it just keeps going.
Beautiful. Tina?
Yeah, with, Alton had a session on how to tell your story. I had to like learn through embarrassment how to tell my story. And still I embarrass myself. But anyways, and then that led to building capacity building capacity for parents to actually be on panels. We had a parent who was on a panel and talked to social workers from their lived experience and inspired. And, we're still hearing back from them. And that's, again, regenerative. And so I don't know if Alton wants to share about that part. And then we just, these are our peers. This is how we recruit. We're recruiting our peers, our community. This is our community. So yeah, it's not necessarily a strategy. It's just, hey, want to join our efforts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to speak briefly on that. And basically I took the efforts community organizations took from the juvenile justice aspect and just applied it with the our parent ambassadors, and it's literally just empowering them to own their experiences and struggles in a way that they can formulate it in a story to where they're able to express themselves, but not only express themselves, but ultimately, change hearts and impact policy. And so I felt through that session, the parents were able to just gain a more sense of self-identity and just empowerment. And we've seen that with David as well, who is one of our parents.
For sure. And what I would, I'd lift up and encourage, it's a great question around capacity building, right? And I think what I've seen in Los Angeles County is you find great folks and you invest in them and you support them. So the fact that the folks on the screen here can start a consultancy and then get funding, pull in your philanthropy, pull in your business sector, pull in the county to figure out where those opportunities are. Because what I've found is you got folks with the best solutions. Like I said, you got founders here. So you think of founders in the tech world that start these businesses that turn into 80% market cap, billion-dollar, trillion-dollar businesses. You got the same thing sitting right here on the screen. So it's on us as system partners. I represent philanthropy. We've got county government. We've got business, right? It's on us, I think, to really invest in these folks because it's an easy bet. It's a real easy return on investment. And then supporting for sure to make it happen. We got 7 or 8 minutes. Anybody else want to come off mic? I'll put my Venmo in the chat and I can send you $5 if anyone talks in this meeting other than us.
I can talk, Justin. I'll take the $5.
All right, sweet.
I was just about to write a text or a chat, but I work with Department of Probation, but I'm also connected to the behavioral health system. My wife is instrumental in doing some things at the state level. And one of the things that comes to mind for me is making sure that there's avenues to bring peers into the workforce. And there's different ways to do that. Each county can, look at this differently. You really have to take a look at your values. You have to take a look at your infrastructure to handle bringing in people that maybe sound different than your typical employee in the past. You have to have real conversations about it, and background checks, all those things have to be applicable. But there's the peer specialist certification that you can get for Medi-Cal. The whole behavioral health system is looking at bringing in peers. You can look that stuff up. There's avenues for counties to pay for people to go through these trainings, pay for their certification, take the exam, and be qualified as an expert peer, and then actually be paid to do the job. They're doing it in CDCR right now as a pilot, so they're bringing it into prisons. They're doing it at behavioral health systems all over the state, so something I definitely recommend. I asked the question earlier about Sacred Groves being in space with juvenile justice involved families, and it sounds like that's a plan. I think that's great. I also am curious if anybody's had experience doing circles with folks from the law enforcement side of things, even though juvenile probation especially, does a lot more social work than you might assume, but it's also connected to that historical perspective of law enforcement and the militaristic, backbone. And so you don't see a lot of people getting into spaces like that. And I just wondered if anybody had experience working with folks in that sphere and how that's gone, if they've been able to bring people into those spaces, because I'm interested in that, but there's, some resistance there. Thank you, the mic.
Appreciate that. Appreciate you sharing. From the Sacred Groves perspective, please fill in, but yeah, the population with respect to law enforcement hasn't been sort of implemented yet, but again, can all be part of the equation. This is as we've been talking, an iterative generative model with different cohorts going through. So appreciate lifting that up.
Yeah, there's a connection to, mandated reporting. One of the highest reports comes from law enforcement. So it's all connected, and we're working on every avenue. Everything will come to light. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'd say the partnership pieces too, with respect to, at DCFS, there's parent partners, community health workers that are paid for through that CalAIM benefit. I know Kathy is active in this space with respect to the different CalAIM benefits and piecing together funding sources. And so don't know if either of you want to weigh in on that. And then I think I saw Ms. Suttle with a hand up. but that hand might have gone down.
No, my hand is still up.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't see the
Yeah, I
screen
was
real though.
just
Go ahead.
I was just thinking about the peer thing. I've been a certified peer specialist for several years, probably a decade now, with the veterans, certified peer support in that population. And what I noticed is just sharing your story. When I have shared my story in various spaces, then people like approach me afterwards because they didn't know that someone else was experiencing it. So that's what I've noticed. When people speak up, more people in the room feel less embarrassed to share their story because they like, okay, this is not just happening to me, it's happening to other people. And I've been advocating for years for that, like, veterans population to be identified with DCSF. It's happened in family court now, but I'm still trying to push that through the DCSF because they're still not properly identifying veterans in that space.
Got you. Appreciate your service as well.
Thanks.
So we only got 2 minutes left. Any burning questions, thoughts from folks? Well, I appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate everybody really being engaged, learning. I hope you all connect with folks on the screen here. Bring them to your counties, bring them to your agencies, your departments. Get them involved, learn from them. You've got folks that are doing exceptional work that can be, again, scaled, replicated anywhere in California, and I would say nationally as well. So we need everybody, and I really encourage you and invite you to join the movement. Thank you to all the panelists. Y'all are amazing and appreciate you.